Hello and welcome back, you beautiful people of YouTube. Today I'm bringing you the review of the Pro iCAN by iFi. Now this is their top of the line flagship offering and it costs about $1,700. And now I know that my channel is mostly budget stuff, and before you go any further and kinda I'm an enthusiast. It's not that I'm going to be in this lane where I pick the budget stuff and I'm gonna champion budget stuff. That being said, this amp, when it came out, it replaced the amps from the high end companies that were based somewhere in the Swiss Alps that were giving you $10,000, $20,000 worth of the headphone amps, and their whole pitch was that these are the most powerful amps. This amp, it has about 14 watts of power, and it will do 14 watts into balance output and 5 watts, about 5 watts into the single-ended. And before this came out, to get that kind of power, you had two options: either buy a speaker amp and mod it or do whatever and turn it into a headphone amp, or buy one of those super pricey amps that were thousands of dollars. So this thing, it's worth the price, and I'm just being completely honest with you right now. And another criticism that I'm aware that this thing has is that it is a little bit outdated right now. A lot of new amps have come out within the last couple years, and while that criticism can be valid if you look at it from one perspective, but then you have to consider the sound that this amp puts out, and there are very few, maybe about 2 or 3 amps right now that are not going towards that THX or whatever technology, just this clean cold sound. There are very few amps that are kind of warm and top of the line right now, and this is one of them if you don't want them to be tube amp. Although this is a tube amp, but even the solid state in it, it differs. It is more analog, it is more smooth. It's not that just grab all the details and put them all together and don't worry about the separation, the instrument separation, the staging. Just give people details and sparkle in the highs. It doesn't do that. It does something different. So it's not in competition with those amps. This is more like it's more like I cannot even think of an analogy. I don't want to do the cars analogy, but it's more like like a Porsche, where you feel the shifts and everything and all that stuff. So it's not in competition with those amps. You are not gonna buy this if you were thinking about those amps. So that was the introduction, and that was me catching you guys up on where does it stand in the market right now. Now I'm very delighted to do this review because it kinda, the look and the way it sounds, it reminds me of a lot of things from the 90s. So it is kinda close to my heart a little bit. But if we are gonna talk about the sound and we're gonna get technical, right now the cleanest sound in headphone amplifiers, I can think of 3 or 4 amps that are at the top right now: the Benchmark HPF4 and the KN IHA06, THX 789, 888, all the variants of it. And this sounds about as good as any of those as far as being clean goes. Now if you talk about details, it's about 95%. It will put out the 95% details of those amps that they put out. But it's warm, its tonality, it puts out a warm tone. So those amps are bright, and it's kind of mixed together. Some of those amps, they are bright, so they kind of appear detailed, but when they are also, some of those are also bright and detailed, and that's just kind of too much. This is just like a smooth warm sound that's clean and very very detailed, very top of the line. Now the most important thing you need to know about this amp is that if you are buying it for the power alone, it puts out 14 watts of power in the balance output. So I'm saying if you have a lot of balance cans and those cans need a lot of power, then this is the amp for you. But if you kind of have the single-ended can, although it will drive them, it's not going to be the most powerful thing for those amps. And I'm just saying, like, there's a level that it can drive anything in the world. Honestly, that's not electrostatic. You throw anything at it, single-ended and balance, whatever. But some people, they are kind of like spec junkies, you know. So this is not the most powerful single-ended amp in the world. But if you have a lot of balance cans, this is the amp for you, 100%. The other thing that you know, that you're gonna find out, and if you research this amp, is that it has 3 modes of operation. So right here it says solid state, tube, and tube plus. I like solid state and tube the most in this amp, and the reason for that is because those are kinda like I think they put out the best thing. The tube plus is when you have something, uh, if you were playing an old jazz recording and you want it to be as warm as possible, or old blues, yeah, the blues, if you were playing them and you want them to sound as smooth, as juicy as possible, then you would put on the tube plus mode. But for most music, and my favorite is acoustic vocals, for that I use the tube mode. And the solid state is, it goes from solid state, it's kind of neutral, warmish, and then you go, okay, the camera decided to have a disagreement with me right there. But anyway, the solid state is kind of neutral, and it's neutralish warm, and then your tube plus is a little bit more warm, and then the tube is a little bit more warm, and then the tube plus is the warmest mode that this amp can do. And solid state, it puts out warm, smooth, and spacious sound, but at the same time very controlled. So it's not that it, just because it's spacious, it's kind of going wild and doing wild things. It doesn't do that. Tube plus is same, but it turns, it makes it warmer, and then tube plus has got a lot of echo going on in the voices and a lot of other things too. So it is kind of hard to describe what the difference between these modes is. Although the more detail you give, the more complicated it gets. But I will say this: you will, most of the time you will run solid state or tube. That is That is the fact that I found out about this. Now, moving on to the conclusion of this amp. Okay, if I was gonna go back home or go travel somewhere, and not travel, if I was, let's say that I took a job in Finland for a year and I traveled to Finland, and then I could take just one piece of each gear. Then I'll take a DAC and I'll take this amp, because obviously when you're traveling and you're abroad, you cannot just take everything, right? You cannot take your tube amp, you cannot take your solid state. So you would need something that is top of the line, just high end, smooth, buttery sound. But it can also do tube. It is also a preamp, and it has a lot of knobs, and I I like knobs, and the knobs here I like them more because that they are there for you to experiment with the sound, just like a console. If you were recording music, you have got X bass and 3Ds, and I would say the X bass is something I use more than the 3D, although 3D was kind of interesting when you use it with tubes. So, and about the tubes, it has General Electric 5670, and I know that I'm gonna get a lot of flack for saying this, but I love those tubes. They are in my top three, and even though they are one of the cheapest tubes, and there will be a lot of people that will say, "Oh, you have shitty taste that you like those tubes." I disagree. Those are one of the best tubes that were ever created in my opinion. And although they might not work the best in like a proper tube amp and everything, you know, with hybrids they work phenomenally. And for my speaker setup, I use 5670 tubes. So kudos to iFi for putting those tubes in. And you can tube roll as well. You'll have to open up your unit, but I think there is a Western Electric option that people like more, although I like the General Electric more. And just fantastic tubes, I love them. uh, and you know, if you are also the kind of person that is short on space and you need just one amp, but these are the spatial reasons. I think the real reason why you should buy this amp is because if you are a fan of that analog warm sound, and the people that know what I'm talking about, they know what I'm talking about. The younger people might not know, might not understand what I'm saying. There was a time when everything started getting recorded onto the digital media, the CDs and everything else. Before that, it was cassettes, vinyl, and all that stuff. And it was around, I think, early 80s or maybe middle 80s, whatever it was. So, the stuff that was recorded before that time, that stuff does not sound the best on the most clinical, clean, digital style amplifier. That kind of stuff sounds good on, for example, R2R ladder DACs. They will push out that stuff and will do justice to them. And this amplifier is also very analog sounding, and it is one of the best representations of the analog sound, and you have to have very good taste to kind of appreciate that. You really have to. There are forums online and there are measurements. People talk about synod and freaking this, freaking that, and I'm like, what kind of music do you listen to? Do you actually listen to music, or do you just read the synod and then you go and buy your amps? I have bought the 789 is sitting over there, and I'm going to tell you it does not play all of my music super well. And although it's great, it's a technical marble, something like this you need to complement that with this, or whatever you pick, whatever high-end HPA for. Even if you had HPA 4, you would need something like this, because music is not that complicated, but there really is. Like, you have to look at the timeline where music started getting recorded onto digital media. So you need one amp that can play that digital media very well, which is something like HPA 789. And then you need one amp that will play older stuff way better. And by the way, it does new stuff phenomenally as well. So you have something like that, you can do justice to both of them. You can do new stuff and you can do old stuff, but it will be tilted in one direction. It will be a little bit better on the older stuff, and the new things that will play older stuff as well, but they will be a little bit better on the new stuff. So thing is, you need something analog sounding in your life, and this might be it. This might be something you need. And thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, and I love you. Bye.